Sulzman now to tell us what's happening in the belly of the beast in Colorado Springs.
Okay, do I have this held about right?
Yeah.
No feedback out there? Okay. As introduced here, I'm from Colorado Springs. My name is Bill Sulzman. And since we're at a Catholic college, I thought I'd even throw a little bio information in here. I got my start in being a peace activist from my training in theology, and a degree in theology in Rome, and all of that stuff. But there was a part of that, it was during the Second Vatican Council, and it's when the church that I'm a member of started taking a look at the whole world and justice and peace issues in that context. So in a way, that is why being part of a global network is a real natural fit for me. So what are we doing in Colorado Springs? As mentioned, we are in a location that is very much at the center of space as applied to war. And in recent years, that has morphed over into cyberspace and that dimension of war, integrating cyber technology into war plans at all levels. And I guess if I had to summarize what we're trying to do is to demystify some of that stuff. There's an aspect of this that is full of detail and full of new scientific language. And at the same time, there's almost nothing new under the sun. At the end of the day, whether you're talking about space technology, satellites taking pictures, listening in, targeting weapons, etc., or cyberspace, learning to integrate the cyber world into how you plan for war and execute it, and even do acts of war in cyberspace. Increasingly, that happens. You knock out somebody else's technology, and you've got an act of war, and people die, and things get blown up. So to sort of encourage people that you can understand the basics of this, and you don't want to be scared off by saying you don't know enough to know what's good or bad. So what are some of the things how do we try to carry out that mission of demystifying? First of all, one of the annual events that we always have a presence at is the National Space Symposium, which has now been going on in Colorado Springs for 23 years. The Global Network has met with us there a couple of times. Because we have two huge space bases there. One at Peterson Air Force Base, which is the headquarters of the Air Force Space Command. Another much more secretive base is Schreiber Air Force Base, named after the guy who gave us the ICBM. And that has something called the Space Warfare Center. It also flies the Global Positioning Satellite System and maneuvers it around. And then another institution there, we have the Air Force Academy, where they're training the next generation of people that are going to use all this war technology. And a fourth base that we see is in our orbit is a huge base in Denver, Buckley, and that has a big tie to Raytheon. They have the largest off-base facility for supporting spy satellite technology. So they don't bend any tin there, as they say, but they do a lot of this other war work that Raytheon does. So the Space Symposium, we actually handed out the FSC chart that we saw last night and made a 20-foot banner of that, actually, as 8,000 people gather to celebrate this great achievement of war in space. We also do weekly bannering in downtown Colorado Springs. One at noon on Fridays is a general nonviolence theme, where we have banners that say nonviolence works, hoping to engage people in conversation about that. At 4:30, every Friday we do a changing topic, anti-war, peace, bannering as people are getting on and off the interstate highway. We rotate the location on a 4 rotation basis. And another thing, because of our location, that we do quite a bit of is hosting out-of-town people who come and showing them some of the facilities, but also trying our best to show how they fit in to this huge use of space and cyberspace for war, planning and execution. The planning is always in there. They're always developing a shopping list for 5 or 10 years down the road. And another thing that we've gotten more involved in the last few years, we also have a huge Army base there. And that gets back to my earlier comment about there's really nothing new under the sun here, that as high-tech weaponry continues to advance, they never give up any of the other dimensions of doing war. So the Army is actually growing faster in our town than the other bases. They're all growing. We don't have base cutbacks. And that has involved us in a local campaign with ranchers who have stood up successfully so far against a major expansion of the land training area for Fort Carson. And right now, a battle that we're losing, but have not quite lost, is they want to bring in 120 more helicopters to Fort Carson. And so we've been leading the campaign with environmentalists and others who, and we've been increasingly able to bring the economic argument into that picture. That having an Army base or Air Force base puts a tremendous burden on your local tax structure because there are major exemptions to taxes. And part of our campaign, which has had some success, is finally getting our local weekly paper to do a 2-part series exploring that issue and introducing some new facts into the debate about, is military spending good for your economy? Now, we have out-of-town people, as I say, come. We've had a French film crew that spent several days with us. We had people from the Mennonite Church Justice and Peace Office come. And some of those tours involve driving by and looking at things and trying to, as best we can, show some of the dimensions of this local military-industrial complex. And in that complex in our town, it involves the university in a major way. Increasingly, they are getting a lot of money to do some of this high-tech stuff. Put in classes you can get a degree in Homeland Security, for example. And that kind of stuff is part of the complex. We actually did a t-shirt a few years ago that said crime on it, with a period after each of those. So it was the congressional, religious, industrial, what's the end?
Military.
Military, educational, and you could have environmental, and our local environmental movement is really totally sold out to the military. We've had to fight that battle. So one of the things we also have tried to do, thinking of being on a college campus, is try to engage, and we have a few contacts at the local liberal arts college where we give in some classes. There's a basic peace studies course there that I usually get a chance to spend some time in, and was last year involved with an anthropology professor and her students' project, looking at some of the deeper issues of militarism in kind of the cultural sense. We live in a place where it's not too hard to see that the military-industrial complex regenerates itself because it does have all these partners. And so that challenge. Still, generationally, it's harder to make some of those connections. So I have a few other things here, but I don't want to take any more of your time. Thanks.